Hey y'all, I'm Mickey Gousset. Now let me ask you something. How many times today did you tell GitHub Copilot the same thing? Use TypeScript. We use single quotes. Add JS.comments. No, validate the input. No, early returns. Over and over and over. Now every time you correct Copilot on your project's basic rules, you're paying what I call the Copilot tax. It's a tax on your time. It burns tokens out of your context window, and honestly, it's just annoying. It's like having a brand new teammate every single morning who forgot everything you taught them yesterday. Now, here's the fix. Custom instructions. It's a little bit of context you write down one time, and Copilot automatically uses it on every prompt after that, without you ever typing it again. But here's the thing nobody tells you. There isn't just one way to do this. There are actually 4 of them, and they stack. So today, we're going from zero to hero. We're going to climb 4 levels, and by the end, you'll know exactly which file to reach for, when, and why. And we're doing this mostly in the GitHub Copilot CLI, right here in the terminal, where this stuff really shines. Okay. Let's go. Real quick, before we start the climb, what is a custom instruction? Well, straight from GitHub, it's persistent background context that gets automatically added to every Copilot prompt. And that's the key word there, automatically. You write it once in a Markdown file, and from then on, Copilot silently includes it with everything you ask. And I mean silently. You will not see it printed in the chat. It's not clutter in your conversations. It's working behind the scenes so Copilot gives you answers that already know your project, your stack, your standards, your coding conventions. Now, one honest caveat, and GitHub says this right in the docs, because AI is non-deterministic, Copilot may not follow your instructions exactly the same way every time. So, think of these as strong, consistent guidance, not a guarantee carved in stone. In practice, the difference is night and day. You'll see. Real quick on the setup, in case you're new to the Copilot CLI, you can install it with an npm install -g at github/copilot, or you could use brew. You could do brew install --cask copilot-cli. And then you just run Copilot in your terminal and log in once with a /login. I'm already set up, so let's climb. Here's the map. 4 levels. Level 1 is your repo-wide file, the foundation everyone on the team shares. Level 2 is path-specific instructions, where you target rules at certain files using a glob pattern. Level 3 is the AGENTS.md file, an open cross-tool standard that works across a bunch of AI agents, and it's a hero move for monorepos. And level 4 is personal, local instructions that live on your machine and follow you from repository to repository. And here's the part I love. These aren't either or, they stack. Every set that applies gets sent to Copilot at the same time. So as we climb, we're not replacing, we're layering. Let's start at the bottom and build up. Level 1. Let's go. Level 1 is the one that most people start with, and honestly, if you only ever do this one, you've already won most of the battle. It's a single file in the .github folder called copilot-instructions.md. It's plain Markdown, there's no special formatting, there's no front matter, no magic. It lives in that .github folder at the root of your repository. It gets committed to source control, so your whole team can share it. Now, what goes in it? GitHub's recommendations are pretty simple. A short project overview, your folder structure, your tech stack and versions, and your coding standards. Keep each statement short and self-contained because remember, this gets sent with every prompt. Let me show you the difference this makes. we're going to do a real before and after. Okay, so here's my demo repo. It's a little Node TypeScript API. Right now you can see I've got no instructions files in the repo. I don't even have a .github folder. On the right hand side, I've got the same repo opened up inside Visual Studio Code. So with no instructions file, let's see what plain old Copilot gives me. So let's open up the CLI and ask it to write a simple function. So we're going to say Copilot and open up the CLI. And then for our simple function, we're just going to say create a TypeScript function in API/source/geometry tree.ts that calculates the area of a circle. And we're going to turn it loose. And it's thinking about it. Okay, so it's come back and it works. And we've got some basic documentation, a couple of lines of comments. It actually added input validation, which I'm a little surprised with. In some of these tests, it did not. But it's very generic, right? It doesn't know how we write code. My team writes code. So it's not following any of the standards that my team has. And that's because I haven't told it anything yet on how we write code. So let's fix that, right? So we're going to start off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out and not take those changes right now. What we're going to do is we're going to create an instructions file. So let's come over here, and we'll create a new folder, and we'll call that we'll create a new folder, and we'll call that new folder .github. And in the .github folder, we're going to create a new file, and we will call it copilot-instructions.md. Now, this is just a markdown file. So let's grab what I want to go in that instructions file, and we'll just come over here and paste it. So we can see I have a project overview section where I say it's a TypeScript and a Node.js that exposes geometry and math utilities using a REST API. I have the folder structure, API, web, and scripts. I have the tech stack, and I have the standards we're going to use, such as single quotes, such as validate all inputs and return null on an invalid input. You'll notice that the file is rather succinct, which is good because it's going to be sent with every request. So let's save these changes. And let's come back over. Let's see, is there anything else I want to point out about the markdown file? Nope. Let's go try it out. So let's go open Copilot back up again this time. And let's run the exact same prompt and see if it looks any different. Oh, look at that. That looks definitely different, right? We've got our parameters, we've got returns and an example. We've got input validation. It's returning null on bad input. Semicolons. It's got everything that I asked it to do to follow our standards without having to actually put it in the prompt myself. The instructions file did it for me automatically, and it's going to do that for every prompt here on out. Now that's level 1, right? So your quick win here is to add a .github copilot-instructions.md file to with your project overview, with your stack, and say your top 5 coding standards and commit it. Your whole team instantly levels up. On to level 2. Now we're getting surgical. Here's the problem that level 1 doesn't solve. That repo-wide file, it applies to everything. But what if your TypeScript rules shouldn't apply to your Python scripts? or your React component rules shouldn't hit your backend. Stuffing it all into one file gets messy fast, and remember, everything in that file gets sent on every prompt. That's what path-specific instructions are for. These live in a different place. They live in the .github folder and in a folder underneath that called instructions. And the file name ends in .instructions.md. So something like .github/instructions/typescript.instructions.md. And here's the one new piece of syntax in the whole video. These files require a little YAML front matter at the top with an applyTo key. And that's a glob pattern that says which files these rules apply to. When Copilot is working on a file that matches the glob, it pulls in those instructions. When it's not, it doesn't. And this is important. They combine with your Repo-wide file. It's additive, not a replacement. Let me show you. Okay, so now I'm going to create a path-specific instructions file that only applies to TypeScript files. Watch the front matter that I put at the top, because that's going to be the magic. So the first thing we're going to do is under the .github folder, we're going to add a new folder, and we will call it instructions. And then in the instructions folder, we can have one or more instruction files. So I'm going to right click and create a new file, and I'm going to call this file TypeScript.instructions. Oh, gotta spell it right. Instructions.md. And then I'm going to add the following content to that file. And then we'll go through it. So let me grab this. Boom. So this right here is the secret sauce. That is what's going to make sure that this instruction file, and let's go ahead and save it while we're thinking about it, applies to any file that ends in .ts or .tsx. Now, quick glob translation of what we've got going on here. A single star is the current directory. Double star is all directories recursively. So ***/star.ts says that every TypeScript file anywhere in the repo. And you'll notice I've got a comma delimited list here. So I comma separated two globs to cover both TS and .tsx. You can be as narrow or as wide with your targeting as you want to. Oh, and one more thing. There's a pro move that you'll see in the docs. You can also add in the front matter something called exclude agent. And if you do add the exclude agent, what that allows you to do is keep this file from being used by, say, Copilot Code Review or by Copilot Cloud Agent. It's a niche thing, but there may be reasons why you don't want this file to be picked up in a review or with Copilot Coding Agent. So it's good to know that it's there. So let's save these changes. And now let's come back over here and let's open up the CLI again. And let's have it do something for us. And again, I could be doing this in VS Code, but I'm having fun showing you both tools. So we'll open up the Copilot CLI again. And now let's have it add us a new function to a TypeScript file. And let's see if it pulls from both my Repo-wide rules as well as my new TypeScript only rules. So for our prompt, we're going to say add an exported async function get circle radius. Oops. Can't spell radius. To API/source/geometry.ts that returns an object with the radius and area. Now, if we look at what we actually put into this TypeScript specific file, that we prefer interface over type, never use any types. We gave it some specific ways to do things and to always export an interface. So here you can see that it picked it up. So it realized that I was making a change to a .ts file, so therefore it grabbed the instructions file to apply those instructions as well as the repo level instructions that I'd given it as well. And here we can see, if we look at the code that was created, we've got explicit return types, we've got an exported interface instead of a type, it's async, and it still kept all of the level 1 habits that we previously talked about with our documentation, our semicolons, our validation, our returning null on bad input. The two files stacked, and that's the whole idea. And notice that they don't fight each other. Level 1 said, return null on an invalid input. And there's nothing in level 2 that contradicts that. That consistency is important. We'll come back to that later. One thing to flag for accuracy, in the CLI and in your IDE, these path-specific files are fully used. There's a corner case. On GitHub.com Copilot chat specifically, path-specific files aren't applied. They're there and used by the cloud agent and code review. But in the CLI where we're living today, fully supported. So here's your level 2 quick win from this. Pull your language or framework specific rules out of the big repo level Copilot instructions file and into a focused .instructions.md file with a very tight applyTo. That's cleaner, and it makes sure that that information is only sent when it's relevant. Level 3. This is where you go from Copilot user to plays well in the whole AI ecosystem. Meet the AGENTS.md file. Think of it as a README, but for AI agents. It's an open cross-tool standard, not a Copilot-only thing. The same agents.md file can be read by Copilot and a bunch of other agentic tools as well. So if your team uses more than one AI assistant, you write your project guidance once and they all benefit. There's also Claude.md and Gemini.md that exist in the same family. And it's just plain Markdown, like we saw at level 1. And the Copilot CLI looks for it automatically at your repo root, in your current working directory, and in any directory you tell it about with an environment variable, which we'll show you at level 4. But here's the killer feature, and it's perfect for monorepos. The nearest one wins. The agents.md file at your repo root is your primary guidance and still applies across the whole project. But if you drop an agents.md inside a subfolder, that nearer one takes precedence for files in that folder. It doesn't wipe out the root one everywhere else. It just wins locally. So your API folder and your web folder can each have their own specifics on top of the root. Let me show you. Okay, let's get into the level 3 demo. First, a root agents.md file. Now this is great for the stuff agents need to do. Build, test, run commands. And you'll notice that I'm telling it the order to run things in. So let's just come out here to the root and let's add a new file and we will call it agents.md. And in that agents.md file, I'm going to add the following content. Let me grab it here. What this project is. So again, I'm describing what the project is, similar to what I had in the Copilot instructions file. I'm telling it to always run npm install before building, build the API, run tests, lint before committing, telling it to use conventional commits, never commit secrets or env files, and add or update tests for every behavior change. Nice. Now, see how I wrote always run npm install before building? That is the kind of explicit ordering language that's gold for agents. It tells them the sequence to do things in, not just the commands. Now, my web folder here is React, different specifics than the backend. So I'm going to add an AGENTS.md folder inside my web folder. And for anything in that folder, this nearer one will take precedence, while the root one still covers the big picture stuff everywhere. So in that case, we'll come to the web and we'll add a new file. And we'll call it AGENTS.md again. And we're going to add the following content. So we're going to tell it to use function components, React hooked only, no class components, co-locate things, use existing design tokens, and every component gets a test. Beautiful. So let's save that too. So now we've got our AGENTS.md file at the top level. We've also got our AGENTS.md file located in the web folder itself. So if we come back over and we go back into our Copilot CLI, and let's tell our Copilot CLI to create a new React component web/source/circlecar.tsx that displays a circle's radius and area. There we go. Let's see what it comes back and tells us. Check it out. So it read both the AGENTS.md file, and because we still had a instructions.md file that was globbing on the star.tsx, it also picked up the TypeScript instructions.md file. And here's what it came up with. Function component hooks, the works. It followed the web folder's agent.md because that's the nearest one to the file it's editing on. Followed root for the big picture, subfolder for the specifics. And just to keep it honest, as you saw, the agents.md file will work alongside your Copilot instruction files as well. It doesn't replace it. It all gets combined in that the appropriate files will all get sent as part of the context. So your level 3 quick win here is going to be to add a root agents.md file with your build, test, and run commands. Future you and every AI tool that you use will thank you. Level 4. This one is the one that's all about you. Now, everything we've done so far gets committed to the repo and shared with the team, which is exactly what you want for project standards. But what about your personal preferences? The stuff you want on every project that nobody else needs to inherit. That's the personal local CLI file. It lives at, in this case on my MacBook Pro, /.copilot/copilot-instructions.md in your home directory on your machine. It is not in a repo. It's not shared. It's just yours. And the CLI applies it across the repos you work on this machine. layered on top of each of the project's own instructions. Let me set mine up for you. Okay, so I have now created a Copilot instructions file in my home directory's .copilot folder. So here you can see I'm in my home directory. Wrong window, of course, as usual. So here you can see I'm in my home directory and in the .copilot folder. And if I look in that folder, there's a bunch of stuff in there. But specifically, what I'm concerned about is this copilot-instructions.md file, which I have opened up over here. And I've added an instruction that says anytime you create a new file, add a header with a comment that sounds like a pirate said it. Because I want some verification that it's actually picking this up. So now this file is going to ride along in every repository that I open or work with on this machine, on top of whatever that project's own instructions files might be. So as I switch from working from one project to the other, saying Copilot CLI or VS Code, if I'm doing it on this machine, it's going to pick up the instructions in this file, because this file is defining the instructions that I personally want to make sure it follows. And we can prove this out. Let's go back. To the repository. And if we open up Copilot, and I've got an instruction here that I want it to create a new React component, web src triangle car.tsx, that displays a triangle's area. And if it is indeed picking up this Copilot instructions file from my .copilot folder, then it should add a comment at the top that sounds like a pirate. So let's find out. There we go. So it's thinking about it. Continues to think about it. And let's see what it comes up with. All right, if we scroll back up to the top, we see R. This card charts a triangle's booty of area. So it talked like a pirate. It did exactly what I expected it to do. So now I can add my own personal things that I want the agent to do, and that will track along with me because it's in my personal folder as I work through different projects. Now, I've also got a power user trick for you. So let's say that you've actually got a shared folder of AGENT.md files or instruction.md files that is outside your current repository. Maybe you're keeping it all in a shared team standards folder. So there's an environment variable that tells the CLI to go look there. So that environment variable is called Copilot. Well, hold on a second, let's clear this out. It's called Copilot underscore custom underscore custom underscore instructions underscore dir. So this is just a comma separated list of directories where you want it to look for these folders. So for example, in my terminal, I could do something like this if I wanted to. I could say, let me just cut and paste this to make it go a little bit faster. But I could run something like this. Where I'm saying export, I'm creating that custom environment variable and looking in a folder, team standards, and looking in another folder, shared agents. And of course I can prove to myself that it's set correctly by echoing it out. But now what would happen is the Copilot CLI would actually use those areas and look for agent.md file or instruction.md files in those directories, as well as all the other places that we've shown where it looks for them. This can be helpful for shared team standards that don't necessarily live in the exact repository that you're working on. Okay, and here's the last thing. And this is the part that turns you into a person on the team who actually knows what's going on. So how do you prove that it's working? And what happens when the files disagree, when you have a statement in one file and a different statement in another file? Well, in the CLI, the most reliable proof that it's working is that before and after that we did for level 1, right? Make a change to an instruction file, fire it off the next prompt, and watch the output shift to match. That's a signal that it is being picked up. If you also use Copilot in VS Code or on GitHub.com, those chat services may also give you a reference to the files that it's picking up. And you could also look into the debug logs, say in VS Code, to see what files are being picked up. The last thing that you need to remember is about precedence. All right, when you've got instructions at multiple levels, here's the order from highest to lowest priority. It's going to be personal, then repository, then organization. But, and this is the part that people get wrong a lot, it's not winner take all. All the applicable instructions get sent to the model, so they're all going to be sent to the model. Precedence only matters when two of them are directly in conflict. But even then, it doesn't necessarily mean that it always wins, because the model is going to ultimately make the decision that it thinks is the best decision. So the best thing you can do from this standpoint is don't write conflicting rules. Don't say use tabs in one file and use two-space indent in another. Keep them consistent, and they will all reinforce each other without colliding against each other. And a few quick don'ts from the official docs while we're here. Don't point Copilot at external links or other files. Follow the style guide in that other repo, for example. It can't go fetch them. Paste the contents in instead. Skip personality stuff like answer like a friendly colleague in the repo file. Skip vague directives like be more accurate. Keep your instruction files reasonable, under 1,000 lines of code. And one more thing, custom instructions are for always on standards. If you've got a specific repeatable task, like scaffold a new API endpoint, that's not an instruction file. That's a prompt file. Something you could put in .github/prompts and make it a prompt.md file that you trigger on demand. It's a different tool for a different job. Remember, short, concrete, always on, that's the instructions recipe. And that's 0 to hero. Let's recap. Level 1, the Repo-wide .github/copilot-instructions.md. Your foundation, project overview, stack, and standards. If you do nothing else, do this. Level 2, path-specific files in .github/instructions folder with an applyTo glob. These are surgical rules that only fire on the files they need to. Level 3, AGENTS.md, the cross-tool standard, plus nearest wins for monorepos. Think of it as a README for your agents. And level 4, your personal copilot-instructions.md file in your home directory that rides along on your machine. Don't forget the Copilot custom instruction DIR's environment variable trick. And don't forget about precedence. Remember, at the end of the day, write your files so they don't have conflicts. Here's your action plan for today. Open your main repo, create that level 1 file, drop in 5 real coding standards, and commit it. It'll take you 5 minutes, and that alone will change how Copilot works for you. Then climb the rest when you're ready. Remember the caveat. AI is non-deterministic, so it's strong guidance, not a guarantee. But I promise you'll feel the difference immediately. Now, everything that I built today, every instruction file, the whole demo repo, is linked down in the description. Clone it, check out the level-0-start branch, and climb the levels yourself. The best way to learn this is to do it. And tell me down in the comments, which level are you stuck on? And what's the first rule you're putting in your instructions file? I read and respond to every comment, and I'd love to hear your real-world scenarios. Now, if this video helped, I'd love it if you would like it, subscribe, and drop a comment. Thanks for watching.